Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to repeat Michael's question. Hello, Adam. What are your thoughts on composing guitar solos versus improvising guitar solos and how to practice each of those skills? Does it differ for singer songwriter tunes versus blues tunes? Um, I don't have a one size fits all answer for this. It's a really good question, but I don't have an answer that will be the right answer all the time. One thing that's different between a singer-songwriter situation versus a blues situation is that usually when I'm playing with a singer-songwriter or when I'm doing my own gig where I am the singer-songwriter, there's a real clear melody to the song, and that could really inform the guitar solo that I play. Um, so even though I might not compose a solo per se in a singer-songwriter situation, I might play a solo that takes inspiration from the vocal melody over whichever section the solo is over. Like if the solo is on a verse, I might paraphrase the verse, or if it's over the chorus, and so on. Sometimes there's a section in the song where the guitar solo happens that's not any of those things that we've heard before. It's a whole other section. So there is a different situation where you really have to uh, play something melodic. Uh, Also, in a singer songwriter situation, it can be nice to play melodically, even if you don't play the melody of the song per se. The singer is singing something melodic, presumably. And when you go to take a solo, you can either play that same game. I don't mean game like, oh, music is as a game, but you know what I mean. Like you can think like a songwriter, think like a composer when you play your solo. That's a nice thing to do. Also, sometimes the whole reason that the singer songwriter wants to have a guitar player there in the first place is to be a foil. So they don't want you to be uh, playing melodies that are like what they do. They want you to do something totally different and maybe something exciting, something, electric guitar is a thing. It's not everybody thinks of the electric guitar as being, vocal like or, lyrical. So you really have to read the room. Also, on any given gig, from song to song, you might make different choices. Whereas all of that is singer songwriter context. In a blues, quite often the blues melodies aren't quite as you know melodic. Like, I mean, they are melodic, but it's a different way of being melodic. I think blues melodies have more to do with uh the structure of the blues, the 12 bar blues, where there's sort of a, you play a theme and then you play that same theme again, like a 4 bar phrase, play the 4 bar phrase again, and then you do something different. That's how blues songs are often constructed. So you can do that in your solo. Really, to answer your question, Michael, of how you would make those choices is really just personal choice and reading the room and see how it goes. But how you would practice any of that stuff, if I wanted to say uh, adhere to the vocal melody, then I would just do that. I would learn whatever song we were doing. I would learn the vocal melody on the guitar and play it enough times, not at band practice, not on stage, not yet. At home, play that melody, spend some time with it, See if you can do little things that make it feel like you're being yourself in your version of that melody. So that um like so for example, if the melody you were playing, I'm trying to think of just something really simple. If you were playing Twinkle Twinkle in C, so the singer sang it pretty straight, and then the melody would be, and so on. And so you could just practice that by pushing the time back and forth a little bit, like 2, 3, 4. Something like that. So just enough variation, yeah, to make it your own, however you want to do it. So I practice that not just a little, but a lot. Like you could spend a whole practice session just doing that, doing it in different registers, doing it different techniques, maybe sometimes focusing on bending, sometimes focusing on sliding, sometimes playing it really straight. If you want to do something totally different, then you really have to practice thinking in opposites. Like try to think of that vocal melody as a character, as the protagonist in the story, and then you come in and you sort of have to be the bad guy, or that character. And so then I would just think in terms of energetically where I could go, and so on. And then in blues, gosh, so much of blues is about kind of the language of the blues. Gosh, I'll stop here, Michael. I hope that's enough. I don't want to take up the whole time here with that, but it's a great question, and one I'll keep thinking about. Maybe that's something I can do a thought out lesson on here on YouTube, or maybe on my Patreon. Super important question. I don't have a pat answer in my back pocket. Uh, Sergio Rodriguez says, no questions. Just want to say that Spry is an outstanding record. Cheers all the way from Portugal. Thank you. That's that's really nice. Thank you. Uh, hey, Adam Kostersberger says, can you speak to using a call and response, or maybe a major to minor return? Um, I think you're talking about in blues phrasing. Sure. When I think of call and response, I think of um, like 2, 3. Now, this is the response. Here's the call. Response. Ah. So it could be in different registers. The call could be up high and the response could be down low, or vice versa. Um, you're really thinking about having a primary melodic idea and then something that answers it. Uh, I don't know of any hard and fast rules for how to do that, but listen to the kind of music that you want to be playing or that you are playing, and listen for examples in music that's, listen to music that does the thing that you want, and try to uh, steal or borrow stuff without quoting it exactly. Think about, what makes it work. Where do the phrases push and pull? Um, where uh, You know what I mean? So instead of actually lifting something note for note off of a record, and that's not a bad idea either if you're just learning. But if you're trying to get the idea of it, try to look at it more from a place of, what is happening conceptually rather than what is happening specifically. So that's what I think of as far as call and response. And as far as like the major to minor return, Uh, I think what you're talking about is how in a blues, like on the one chord, we could play something that's has a major melody, 2, 3, 3, 4, and then when it goes to the 4, you would play the minor third of the key. So we're in C. When it goes to the 4 chord, I could that major melody that I played over the C chord. When it goes to F, I would play a minor version of that, because that E flat, that flatted third of the key, that note is going to sound a lot more resonant with the F7 chord. And then on the 5 chord, I would probably go back to major, and then on the 4 chord, I'll do another idea like that. 2, 3. I've gone to the 4, back to 1, and now to the 4 chord. Back to 1. That's the 5. Maybe one more example. 1 chord, 4 chord, 4 chord, back to 1. So is that what you're talking about? Okay, cool. Yeah, really, that's that's the big that's the big idea. Django Earnhardt says, "Hi Adam, when getting a guitar set up, how do you know if your guitar is intonated well? Should all instances of any note be in perfect tune, or do we accept some inconsistency?" Oh boy. Uh, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, Django, the guitar is, I find, even after all these years, is really hard to get it so that everything is in tune all the time. Uh, if you're somebody who spends most of your time playing kind of open position chords, then I think, tune to a tuner, but you might have to make some adjustments so that all the chords sound good. In this case, this sounds pretty good. Like what's happening is that thirds and fifths, like when I say a third, like this is a third from G sharp to B is a kind of a third, or from E to G sharp is a kind of a third. This is a major third. This is a minor third. Those, sound good to our ears maybe when they're a little bit flat from perfect. Whereas this fourth on top from B to E is going to sound better to most people if it's really bang on in tune. So at the bottom of this E chord, we've got a perfect fifth. So we want to get that in tune. And then we've got a perfect fourth. And we can check this octave. But then we get to these thirds, and we can check them as, wider intervals. So that sounds pretty good. But, when you go to a C chord, all of, now the thirds, this is a third, and this is a third, and this is a fourth, and this is a third. So where the thirds and fourths are, as far as like which pair of strings, is going to change for every chord. So if your guitar is made well and intonated well, none of that stuff should matter. It should be close enough that your ear just kind of lets it be okay. And then as we go up the neck, we have a little bit more opportunity to kind of tweak things, bending the strings as we go. So we can kind of move things to being in tune by making little micro adjustments as we play. You shouldn't have to do that, but the really great players, I think, are making little micro adjustments a lot, a lot of the time. Uh, if you had your guitar set up and it doesn't seem like it's in tune all up and down the neck, make sure that you're not accidentally, moving a string that you're like, here sometimes people move strings that when they're playing chords that they don't mean to. You might just need to relax and learn to get stuff really bang on in your left hand. But it's also possible that your repair person didn't get it right. So you can always go back to them. But do make sure that you're not inadvertently um, pushing the guitar out of tune, and just know that it's a reality of just the physics of sound and strings and stuff, that it's never exactly in tune, but we just try to get it close enough. Um, let's see. David Dewey says, "How do you suggest reigniting my playing from solo repertoire or jazz trio after I have been focusing on a different genre or project?" For me, it's coming back to my jazz trio and solo repertoire after focusing on my sub role in a rock cover band gig for 6 months. Um, David, I think a big thing that you have to do is um, change your listening habits to really um, you know be really intentional. Obviously when you go out into the world, you can't help it if you go to a restaurant and they're playing classic rock. You can't ask them to change it over to jazz just for your sake. But anytime that's your time, whether you're at home or in the car or whatever, really listen to stuff that has more to do with the music that you are making or want to be making. And it's a good idea to build playlists, throughout the year so that like when this 6-month rock covers gig ends, you're not starting from scratch trying to build a playlist of jazz stuff that you like. Of course, you can, and there's algorithms, and you can probably find an existing playlist that's close to what you want to do, or let Spotify recommend stuff to you. But yeah, if you want to uh, get your head back into jazz, you really have to just recalibrate your ears. And then I think also we need to practice stuff that supports playing jazz, like jazz chord vocabulary and shell chord voicings. And it takes time. Just so you know the headspace of it. Whenever I go out on tour with an artist where we're basically playing the same 15 or 20 songs in some rotation over the course of a couple of weeks. When I get home from that tour, I have a couple of days where I am thoroughly convinced that I don't know any other songs, that I just only know how to play those 15 or 20 songs. Um, and oh gosh, what am I going to do? I've forgotten everything I know. And of course, that's not the case. But you just need to kind of deprogram the rock or whatever you've been doing. Listen to jazz, practice the skills that you need for jazz, um, and just get right back to it. But be forgiving if it takes you a couple of days. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. It just everybody has to find their way back to the center of what they're doing. Tom Spoonmore says, "Hi Adam, any advice for a guitarist who wants to play with a lighter touch? I find that I grip the neck too hard, straining my wrist and making my playing less fluid." Um, yeah, just being aware of it is already a big thing. Uh, Tom, I'm curious, what kind of guitar are you playing? Is it electric? Is it acoustic? Maybe let me know. Electric jazz on a telly mostly. And how heavy are your strings, Tom? 11s. Great. Yeah, that's a nice setup. 11s on a Telecaster for jazz. That's really nice. Well, I think you just need to put some intentional practice into this and um, see how light you can get away with it before it gets buzzy or problematic. Like if I just grab this note C and I think of that as like, okay, I'm playing with the pressure of 5 out of 10 right now. I'm going to try to go to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't want to stay at 10 too long because that's going to cause the problems that you're having. So let's go back down to 5 and now see what happens when I go to 4 and then 3 and then 2, starting to kind of buzz out a little bit, and then 1 is not so good. And then bring it back from 1 and see how little you can actually get away with. If you're playing a Telecaster, you really shouldn't need a lot of pressure to make the notes sound really good. Just experiment with that. See how light you can play. And maybe even take an exercise book Like a book that I like is this Hanon for guitar book. Really simple exercises. Everything is in open position. It's not up the fretboard. But you could work through that book just only with one intention, which is just lightening up your touch. I mean, I'm just looking at my bookshelf. You might have different books on your shelf, but the Mauro Giuliani 120 arpeggios, you could work on that just solely as a with just one goal, not to play the arpeggios perfectly, but just as something to do while you're working on your left hand. Uh, you could shameless self promotion here. You could buy my shell chords book and go through it and just play through the exercises with just that one goal, lightening up on your left hand. Because you can't just think about it and as a like mental exercise. I think you need to actually practice it. But I don't have a specific exercise. Like just practice whatever it is that you normally practice, but change your goal. You're not trying to perfect anything. You're not trying to play faster necessarily, but you're just trying to see how light you can go and and see where that line is and maybe push a little past it and find the sweet spot. Let's see. Triple J 38118. I really like these questions, by the way. I should say I did one of these a few weeks ago, and I got somebody kind of said at the end of it, like, man, this is a drag because people are asking these very uh, kind of heavy music theory questions, and I'm more of a beginner, and I can't imagine, why anybody would ask these questions. Can we please talk about stuff that more people might find useful? And I'm not totally sure. I never know who's going to tune in and watch. So like where the sweet spot is of like what's too basic or what's too heady, I really never know. It really depends on who's watching. But I like that the questions you've been asking out so far, everybody, I think are pretty relatable. So thanks for all of these. Okay. Triple J 38118 says, hi, a gear question. Do you prefer truss rods that adjust at the neck or the heel? Um, yeah, I have spent almost all of my guitar life, almost all of it, playing a Gibson style guitar. I got an ES 335 when I was 13, and I've had Fender guitars. I have some now, I've had some in the past, but my whole frame of reference of how guitars work, a huge chunk of that comes from my experience with that first 335 and other Gibson style guitars. So to me, I expect that the headstock is, or that the truss rod is adjustable from here. You take, there's two screws and you unscrew, and then you see the truss rod and you get your wrench and you adjust it and you screw it back on. The guitar tips, I just thought of this. This logo, this guitar tips logo, is a truss rod cover off of a Gibson style guitar. I mean, it's this way, but it would be this way on the guitar. So this tells you which I prefer. I am not somebody who's going to take the neck off of a Telecaster and adjust it and then screw it back on or bolt it back on. That is something I would trust a professional with, but I have no problem unscrewing this and wrenching it and getting the truss rod where it needs to be on my Gibson guitars, on my Collings guitars. That's where I'm comfortable for sure. But if you're a gigging guitarist and a traveling guitarist, especially, and Fender bolt-on necks are your thing, you should learn how to do it. It scares me because I'm not a tinkerer person, but that should be something that you should be able to do. I don't think it's that much harder than changing your strings or anything else. It just takes practice. So figure it out and do it so that you can take care of your guitar and you don't have to always go to a repair shop, or worse, just leave your guitar in an unplayable condition. Oh man, Tom, thank you very much. That was really nice. Uh, let's see. Joel Morissette says, like so many, I find myself practicing into musical ruts, sticking with what's comfortable. I know that we make progress when we're uncomfortable. Any ideas on how to break out of the ruts? Uh, yeah, just, I mean, it's just all head game stuff. You have to learn to be uncomfortable and work on some new stuff. A lot of people say they want to work on new stuff and break out of the ruts, but then they don't want to do the work. So the main thing is just do the, like, get yourself a book on something that you're interested in, or if you're not a book person, maybe find something on TrueFire, find a course that talks about something that is something you're interested in but haven't worked out how to do on the guitar. And really, you have to be your own accountability coach. You have to hold your own feet to the fire. A True Fire course might be a good idea, or a book, because there's an end. So you know that eventually you're going to get to the end of the book or at the end of the course, and then you can evaluate, like, what of this stuff that I've just been working on for the past couple of months or whatever, what do I want to keep and incorporate into my playing, and uh, what can I let go of? Um, but don't just keep practicing the same old stuff. Uh, there is a comfort in it. You can get into a neat kind of meditative headspace by doing something that where you don't have to think about what the next step is. But if you want to grow on the guitar, I think you do have to push past that stuff. And it's just really all about, the headspace of letting yourself be uncomfortable, and the headspace of developing new habits or tweaking the habits that you have to include new, uncomfortable or less comfortable things. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Um, yeah. Also got transcribing horn players after I saw you were working on Clark Terry. So great for phrasing. Yeah. If you can learn, I finally now can play that whole thing almost at tempo. I was working on this Perdido thing from a Duke Ellington recording from 1958 or 59, that Clark Terry is on, and they do this. There's a song called Perdido that they never play actually on this recording. They have a completely other melody, two choruses of this beautiful line that is not Perdido, but is over the changes of Perdido. Uh, and I can almost play it to tempo. It's a knuckle buster, and it's definitely too fast, or much faster than almost anything that I work on most of the time. But it's really fun, and you can learn so much by studying what horn players do versus what guitar players do. A neat record that I've been listening to this week that you might want to check out, Joel, is it's called Circuit Rider. Uh, the band leader on this record is Ron Miles. He played cornet and wrote beautiful tunes. And this is a trio record with Bill Frisell on guitar and Brian Blade on drums and Ron Miles on cornet. And it's a neat way to hear, like, on these tunes, what does it sound like when Bill Frisell takes a solo on this tune, and then what does it sound like when Ron Miles plays over the same kind of tune, the same harmony, and all that. There's no bass on the record, and of course, I love bass. I love bass players, but it's a lot easier to hear what's going on in the absence of bass, and it's just three people: cornet, electric guitar, and drums. Beautiful record, Circuit Rider by Ron Miles. 8 to 38 is the best easy on the hands jazz rock country blues metal set. BB King was right. Johnny T, I have not tried an 8 to 38 set, but I've been playing lighter than I used to. I've mostly played 12s on most of my guitars most of the time for a long time. But uh, my friend Rich Hinman has been experimenting with lighter strings, and he actually told me about um, a set that's like that, that I think Pyramid makes, something like that. Uh, everything is your own comfort and your own habit. And if you can get down on an 8 to 38 set, why not? Like, I don't play heavy strings to try to prove a point, or I'm not. It's not a flex. Like, the reason that I play heavy strings is when I was younger, like when I was maybe 24 or 25. For a couple years, I had a duo gig with a really great older guitar player, a guy named George Hannepin. We played at this cafe, and he used to record our duo gigs, and just with a little portable cassette recorder. And one day he said, "Hey, you want to check this out?" And he gave me the cassette, and I took it home and I listened, and I was really struck by how beautiful and warm his sound was, and how kind of thin and flat. Not flat as in flat sharp, but just flat as in not dynamic, not colorful. My sound wasn't very good. So I looked at what his setup was, and he was playing, I think, an L5 with heavy strings through a polytone amp. And I was playing my 1979 ES335 with probably, I don't know, nines or tens or something on it. And through a deluxe reverb. And, that should be a beautiful sound. But one thing about a deluxe reverb is that when you're playing quietly in a cafe and the volume is on two, you're not getting the whole benefit of a tube amp. Really, you don't get the compression and the warmth and the good squash that I would have had if I was opening that amp up. So with my amp on two or two and a quarter, I didn't sound like much. Whereas George, playing through a polytone, which is a solid state amp, he could set the volume at whatever, and it was going to sound about the same, except louder and softer. Um, so that's when I started to go towards heavy strings, and I eventually landed on 12s. Also, around that time, besides playing duo gigs with George, I was also playing a lot of duo gigs with singers, where I was the kind of the whole band. And I was listening to Tuck Andrus, who I think used pretty heavy strings, I think, and listening to Ted Green, who definitely used heavy strings. And I liked that sound. And of course, it doesn't work well for country and blues and a lot of stuff. So, I guess one lesson is, like, you can't hold everything all at once. You make a choice to do one thing, and you might have to let go of something else. I have never played an 8 to 38 set, but I'd be curious to try it. My friend Rich Hinman has been playing with lighter strings lately, and he loves it. But yeah, I think 11 is about as light as I could see myself going. It's just, yeah, it's personal. Try getting behind the wheel of somebody else's car, and see how far back they like to sit from the wheel, or how close up, or how reclined, or it's like there's not a wrong way to do it. It's just uh, what you dig and what works. Uh, Adam says sometimes it helps to press down on the body to bring the neck to your fingers for a lighter touch. Yeah, I do that. I don't know if it's easy to see in this camera angle, but yeah, a lot of times I'm bringing the guitar in this way with my elbow, which then forces the neck into, I think that's what Adam's talking about here, so that you can play with a pretty light touch because the fretboard is kind of meeting your hand halfway. Um, yeah, I do that sometimes. These days, I'm actually trying to do that less because I'm trying to let the guitar be a little freer and not hold it so so tightly. But absolutely true what you said. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, there's I guess gravity. I don't know. Um, Laureano Gomez. Oh, I skipped some things. So Alex says, how do you suggest not getting lost when playing, improvising over jazz tunes? It's just difficult sometimes to be aware of every chord change. I'll say it again. This is from Alex. How do you suggest not getting lost when playing, improvising over jazz tunes? It's difficult sometimes to be aware of every chord change. Yeah. This is the thing is I try not to think about every chord change. I try to think about the melody. If I stay with the melody in my head, the melody of the tune, then I find it harder to get lost. If I just think about the chords, then I could get lost. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to play all the things you are. So if I think about the chords, so it's F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. Some of you are probably lost already. D flat major 7, G7, C major 7. That's the first 8 bars, and we've got a lot more to go. Now C minor 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, A flat major 7, A minor D7, G major 7. We're about halfway through the tune. That's already a lot of chords if you're trying to deal with all that. So here I'm going to try to deal with all that. 2, 3, 4. That's the C major. Now C minor, F minor, B flat, dominant, E flat major 7, A flat major 7, A minor 7, D7, G major 7. Right? Yeah, that's a lot. And there's way more. But if I just think about the melody, it always stays in the right, it always keeps me in the right place. It's easy for me to get the chords jumbled around, but when I think about them, so now I'm going to think about the melody. 2, 3, 4. So I'm trying to keep the melody in my head more than the chords. That is hard to do if you're at a jam session and somebody just flips open a real book or hands you a chart and you don't know the melody. But if the melody is on the page and you can read it, try playing the melody a little bit. Really, the best way to get lost is when you're not looking at the page at all and you really know a tune. So if you play a lot of jazz tunes, it really is on you to memorize the tunes, meaning that you could actually play the melody in the key that normally people play it in, and you could even play it in another key if you wanted to. That's when you know a tune. Yeah, the reality of jazz is that you're probably going to get thrown into a situation, before too long where you're playing, or somebody asks you to play a solo over a tune that you don't know. Then that's hard. That takes years to figure out how to do. But in the meantime, if you're mostly playing standards like All the Things You Are and Autumn Leaves and things like that, make sure you know the tunes. And then I don't think you'll have a problem with being lost. It's really about, like, the tune is the breadcrumbs, on the pathway through the forest. And the chord changes are the trees in the forest. You need to know those trees. You need to know what they look like. That also can help you from uh, getting lost. But it's better if you've got that trail of breadcrumbs to follow that leads you exactly where you need to go. Uh, Laureano Gomez says, "Thank you for your music. Sorry for my English. How do you create music and to find confidence?" Oh, that's such a beautiful question. Uh, I'm not even sure how to answer, but how do I create music? Do you mean how do I compose my own music? How do I write music? Um, Let me come back to that. But how do you find confidence? Uh, a lot of to whatever extent I have confidence, and I don't think I have any more than anyone else. A lot of times I am uh, just faking it, to be honest. Like, maybe in my mind there's a lot of doubt, but I just don't say it out loud. That's the one thing, is like, you can really, I mean, you have to, ultimately you're responsible for yourself. But when you start to talk about your self-doubt with other musicians or with friends or fans or whomever, then it tends to just kind of be out there, and it's hard to clear the room. So one thing is just try not to talk about I mean, here, this is a safe space. You're asking a question, so that's totally fine. But there's a book. I'm gonna just grab the book. I'll show it to you. This is a book that I like a lot. I read it a few years ago and then kind of forgot about it, and then my friend Keith Williams reminded me that it's an important book for creative people. So, Laureano, I don't know what your language is, but I would be very sure that this book is available in a lot of different languages. And a lot of it is illustrations and stuff. So it's, even if your English isn't great, you could probably read it in English. But I would suggest that you find a copy in your native language. And it answers that question about confidence. It answers that question about creativity. I create my own music. I come at it from a lot of different ways. Sometimes I write a song based on, excuse me, like if I'm writing an instrumental jazz tune, not something with words, I might just think of a form like the blues. Okay, the blues, it's usually 12 bars long. I'm going to write something that's 12 bars long. I know what the usual chords in a blues are, but maybe because I'm trying to do something creative and different, maybe I'll kind of change the rules a little bit, but I'll still keep it as a 12 bar thing that has a sense of resolve to it. But maybe I'll just change where the inflection points are of how things resolve. And then I need to write a melody, and the melody, I was talking about this before, can have kind of a main theme, and then a restatement of that theme, and then a variation. And next thing you know, I've written a blues. If you're trying to write something that doesn't have such an archetype, something just more personal, I might start with a melody, which could be something small and simple. Maybe I'll just try to write something now. So I'm just going to play something. I'll pick a key so I have some framework. So E major. So here's a little melody in E major. And play it again. So I'll keep playing it so that I'm really sure of what it is. And now I'm here. I didn't intend to write a waltz, but it feels like it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then maybe I'll think of a melody that follows that. And then I'll go back to the first melody. With the variation. So now I've got something. I think that's what it was. I changed it, but I got to something that sounded like music. If I was smart, I would have had a tape recorder running. I usually try to do that when I'm writing. It could be your iPhone or whatever. And when you have a good idea, stop and make a little note of it so that you can get back to it. And then I would think about what the chords might be. Something like that. So, that's starting with a melody. I started with a key, and then I made up a melody, found something I liked, made a variation, came back to it. Sometimes I start with chords. I'll just be messing around. I wrote a tune called No Thanks that just started because this was just an accidental thing that my hands did one day. And I thought, well, that's neat. And then I wanted to go far away from that to start the tune. So I started with this. So that first part was really just an intro. And now I've gone to a completely different key. And now I have to figure out how to get back to where I was. So this is just started with some hand stuff. I mean, we're guitar players, so hand stuff is going to drive some of what we do. So this is a tune of mine called No Thanks. It really just started with some chords. This is G minor, A minor, the 4, and just walks down 2. And then for the bridge, I wanted to go someplace. I'm tired of G minor, so how about A flat minor? Uh, C minor. Uh, Back to A flat minor, and then this is just hand stuff. I don't know what chords those are. They're just hand stuff. But somehow that got me back to this thing. You really, this kind of harkens back to the question I got earlier about how do you get out of a rut. Part of composing involves letting yourself be lost and uncomfortable, because that's where you're going to find something new. And you have to be patient and confident, like you said, and be able to sit with it long enough to recognize what it is that you've stepped in. Um, you don't have to be a genius. You just have to be patient. Yeah. Uh, One finger guitarist. Hi, Adam. Thanks for sharing your wisdom so freely. I wondered, do you play slide guitar at all? And if so, any insights? I'm going to say no. I have played slide. I look across the room. I see a slide sitting on my bookshelf. I really don't have any good insights on slide guitar. You know who's great at slide guitar? Here in Brooklyn, my friend Chris Parker. He's on Instagram doing lots of amazing things with slide guitar. Check him out. Another guy based in Los Angeles is a guy named Dylan Day, incredible guitar player, great slide player. Check those guys out. Oh, wow. So many questions here. Let me see if I can catch up. KC2516, I know who you are. From The Advancing Guitarist, Mick Goodrick talks about the importance of playing on one string. With so many possible things to practice, it seems overwhelming to me. Ideas on where to start. Yeah. So what he's talking about here is there's this Mick Goodrick book, The Advancing Guitarist. And at one point in the book, Mick talks about playing on just one string at a time. So learning all your scales. So for example, let's say the F scale. So here's F major on the E string. Here's the F major scale on the B string. Here it is on the G string. The D string. The A string. The E string. Right? So that was just one possible key, the key of F. I'm going to show off my t-shirt one more time. Shameless, but I'll do it. Woo, guitar tips. um, and yeah, that was just one possible root, F, out of 12 possible roots. That was just one scale type, the major scale, of many scale types. And we haven't even gotten into playing any music. We're just doing kind of calisthenics on one string at a time, and supposed to, oh, hey, thank you. A couple people have been tipping here. Thank you, Laureano. Much appreciated. Yeah, KC, I would say if you had an hour to practice today. I would run scales up and down strings. Just pick one key. Uh, could be F, could be whatever. Play some scales. Maybe play some arpeggios. Could just be simple three-note arpeggios, or if you play jazz, could be four-note arpeggios, all the different types. Rather, so I'm playing F major 7, F7, F minor 7, F minor 7, flat 5, F diminished 7. And so you could do all that. Do that on all six strings for maybe half an hour. It'll go by, I think, pretty quickly once you get into it. And then, you could have a drone going. Sometimes I'll go on YouTube and search for cello drone or any kind of drone for practice. So I have something going on. Sometimes I'll have a metronome going. Sometimes I'll find a drum loop. So I've got, one YouTube window open that's just playing an F drone or some kind of ambient F thing that's not major or minor, just F. And then I'll have some kind of beat or loop, some kind of rhythm thing going. I'll do that for like half an hour. Then I'll try to play some music. So maybe instead of just staying on F drone, well, you could stay on the F drone, but start to play a tune. Either improvise just with an F drone, or find a backing track like a slow blues in F and play along with that, or some kind of jazz standard if you play jazz, something you're familiar with. So something where all the half hour that you've spent doing all this F stuff could actually pay off. And then, try playing a blues in F on one string. This is the 4 chord. Back to 1. Here's the 5. Uh, and so on. I mean, you don't have to do all the accompanying stuff like that, but you know, I think the thing that makes any of that stuff stick, like, don't try to do more than half an hour of one string practice. I think it'll make you a little crazy in the head, and you don't want that. You want to Okay, you want to stay focused. So give yourself a timer: 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Put the guitar down, get up, stretch out a little bit, and then find a slow blues or whatever style you like to play, and make some music. That's what makes all of that work stick. That's what the reward is. You get to play some music. You might find in the end that it still doesn't feel like you, and you're more comfortable playing in boxes and positions, caged, pentatonic, whatever. That's fine, but just remember that that one string stuff, it doesn't have to be where you live, but it really is nice as connective tissue between the positions, so that you're not just moving from position to position. I'm going to have to stop pretty soon here because I've actually got some private lessons. I'm going to try and zoom through these. Uh, have you always been a slow player, never interested in guitar pyrotechnics, so to speak? Uh, Yeah, not really. I like it when other people do it. I really do. I mean, when I was younger, I really liked Alan Holdsworth. I never could play anything like him, but I really liked it. I really liked Steve Morse from the Dixie Dregs. Couldn't play anything like that. Uh, I love Charlie Parker. I can't really play anything like that. So yeah, I love players that play, and I mean, I even like Ingve. I saw Ingve play at the Fillmore in San Francisco years ago. It was incredible. So I like it when other people do it. It's not what I want to do. It's just not how I hear music in my head. So I don't want to spend all my practice time trying to do something that is not. Uh, it doesn't. It's not what I want to create. It's not the music in my head or in my heart. Uh, Michael Davis, do you have any favorite P90 pickups you would recommend? I have not done a lot of experimenting, but the P90s, I have a Collings I-30 that came with throwback pickups. I think it's the 52, 54 set. Those are great pickups. I put some Lawlers on just as an experiment. Really, I did. There was nothing wrong with the throwbacks, but I like the Lawlers. Those are really cool. You if you're if you're a tinkerer, you can always experiment with if you have a set and you're not sure that you love them. P90s, you can take the cover off, and there's bar magnets in there. I don't think it's that hard to try other there's different Alnicos that you different bars that you could buy on StewMac. You can buy the bars. Just make sure that you put some kind of marker so that you can go back to where you were. Um, you don't want to experiment and then say, okay, I'm done. I want to go back to where I was, and not be sure how to do that. So make sure that you mark them with a Sharpie or sticker or chalk or whatever. But yeah, you can mess around with P90s if you have ones that you're not sure about. Or if you have money to experiment, you can buy some other ones. I'm not that much of an aftermarket pickup guy. Most of my guitars have the pickups that I got them with. Uh, the position of the left thumb also helps relaxing the hand. Yeah, Alex, that's really true. Um, Johnny T says, yeah, lighter strings might help with the tension. Yep, totally true. Uh, you might have to just re relearn how to play with lighter strings so that there's less of less tension going on. Wouldn't be a bad idea to see somebody like if you live somewhere and have resources where you can find somebody who teaches Alexander technique or body mapping or some kind of way of body awareness. uh, I've in my experience, we think of it as a hand thing, or a wrist thing or an elbow thing, but it's often it's how you're using all of your body, your feet, uh, your spine, everything. It's all we notice our hands because our hands are touching the guitar. We notice other stuff because that's where the pain gathers. But it's good to get to work with somebody if you can, who can sort of look at all of what you're doing and help you there. And of course, lighter strings is helpful. Even the strap that you use, I found years ago I was having some pain here, and I went from using kind of a narrow strap to a wider strap, and that kind of dispersed the weight. So if that helps somebody, good. Uh, Gosh, there's so many cool questions here. I think I have to stop because I've got I've got a one-on-one lesson coming up here on the hour. So I'm going to wrap it up. Yeah, Adam, I think hipster sorcery t-shirts is a really good idea. Hey, I don't know if any of you live in Chicago or near Chicago. I'm playing Monday night, this Monday, December 11th in Evanston, Illinois, at a place called Space. So if you're in or around Chicago on Monday, please come on down. The show is at 7:30 Monday night. Thanks for those of you who asked questions. I didn't get to everybody, but I tried to. Thanks for a couple of you left tips. That was really nice. Come back. I'll do more of these. I really like checking in with you all, and so thank you. All right, take good care.